Welcome to our deep dive. This time, it's all about customer culture, and we're going deep with The Customer Culture Imperative by Dr. Lyndon R. Brown and Chris L. Brown.
Great book, yeah. A ton of insights in there about how companies really build a culture around their customers.
That's the mission for us today. What does customer culture really mean? How does it affect a company? And what can you actually do with this information?
Like a cheat sheet for understanding these concepts and applying them.
Love it. Okay, first things first. What even is customer culture? Seems like everything uses that phrase, but what's the real meaning?
Yeah, it's definitely more than just saying, the customer is always right. It's deeper than that.
So it's not just a slogan.
Right. The authors really stress it's about behaviors, a whole set of beliefs, actually, and every decision the company makes needs to put the customer first.
So it's like baked into how they operate, part of their DNA.
I like that, yeah. And they've identified 7 key disciplines that strong customer cultures are good at. We'll touch on some of the really interesting ones today.
Can't wait. Did you catch that part where they compare customer culture and performance to temperature and distance from the equator?
Such a cool analogy, right? The closer to the equator, the hotter it gets. The stronger your customer culture, the better your results.
So not just some vague idea, it really seems to matter.
Yeah.
Which makes their first discipline, customer insight, even more important.
Exactly. Customer insight is all about understanding your current customers' needs, frustrations, what makes them happy, what feedback they're giving you. It's the whole picture.
Like that Zappos example, making all-in new employees, no matter their job, work in the call center for training.
Smart, right. You get that experience, the empathy, and it really builds understanding.
And at the end of the day, why is that so important?
Keeping your existing customers happy is way more profitable than constantly hunting for new ones.
Makes sense. You put the effort into understanding someone, they'll stick around.
That's it. And this is where things get really interesting, their next discipline, customer foresight.
Ah, yes. Anticipating what customers need before they even know it.
Yeah. Exactly. It's looking past what they're saying now, trying to figure out what they'll want later.
Like Amazon doing free shipping.
Yeah.
Short term, maybe it didn't make sense, but in the long run, huge loyalty, huge growth.
Perfect example. Customer foresight can really change the game. Good for the company and the customer.
It makes you wonder, what are the needs your business could be fulfilling that nobody's talking about yet? Like the iPod. No one was saying, I need 1,000 songs in my pocket, but Apple saw it coming.
Classic example. Totally changed how we listen to music. Shows you have to think outside the box, really challenge what you think customers want.
Okay, so we've got understanding our current customers, predicting their future needs. What's next for a strong customer culture?
Discipline number 3, competitor insight.
Right, it wasn't just knowing WHO your competitors were, it was understanding how they operate. Strengths, weaknesses, how they approach customers, all of that.
Exactly. Imagine a sports team scouting their opponents. Gotta know their game plan if you want to win.
Love that. But they had that one example, a company that kind of ignored that, right?
Ah, yeah, Blue Banner pickles. People were complaining they couldn't get enough pickles, and their solution was to raise prices.
That's bold. But they had like 90% of the market, so I guess they could.
Oh.
Makes you wonder, though, what happens when a real competitor shows up?
It's a risk. Shows how important it is to watch your competition, even when you're on top. Things change fast.
All right, so understanding your customers, seeing the future, keeping an eye on the competition, what else makes up a strong customer culture?
Discipline 4 is strategic alignment. Basically, everything we've been talking about has to fit with the company's overall vision.
Like having an amazing engine, but no car to put it in. What's the point?
Right. The book had this great example, Stelter, a fundraising consulting firm. They wanted to be more customer-centric, so they got everyone involved in creating new values that reflected that.
Really smart. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone's bought in.
And it shows another key point. Leaders have to be committed to this. They set the tone for everyone else.
So we've got the basics of what customer culture is and why it matters. But how do you actually do it? Changing a whole company, that's going to be tough.
That's where we're headed next. Real companies, real stories of how they made this shift and really focused on their customers.
Ooh, can't wait. This is getting good. Okay, let's hear about these companies that actually pulled off this transformation. Because honestly, changing a company's culture, especially a big one, sounds huge.
It's a big deal. Needs real focus, clear vision, and everyone's got to be on board, especially the people at the top. The book talks about companies, all different types, who made this change to really put their customers first.
Let's start with one you wouldn't expect, Australia Post. the mail.
Not exactly known for cutting-edge customer stuff, right?
Yeah.
But that was the problem. When Ahmed Fawar became CEO, mail was dying. The internet was changing everything. They knew they had to adapt.
Like, almost poetic. The Postal Service in the digital age, struggling to keep up. So how did they even start to change things?
Fawar, he was serious about making Australia Post more customer-focused. And he actually led by example. He read customer mail himself, complaints, everything. Showed that feedback was important.
He wasn't just talking about it. Wow.
Yeah, and they didn't just listen to complaints. They realized the world was online, so they started offering new services, tried to bridge the gap between the physical and digital.
So they were moving with the times, meeting customers where they were. Did it work?
They made huge progress, but it's like the authors say, culture change, it never really ends. It takes constant work, but even huge companies can make a difference.
Makes sense. What about another company, someone else who did this well?
How about Virgin Trains? They took over British Rail, famous for being bureaucratic, not exactly customer-friendly, and they turned it around completely.
That's impressive. How did they do it?
Their leader, Tony Collins, he was all about the customer experience. And he understood it starts with your employees. Gotta give them power to make things right.
Like happy employees make happy customers, right?
Exactly. And they didn't just tell employees to care more, they got them involved. Workshops really emphasizing that customer focus in everything they did.
Kind of like Stelter, that other company, getting everyone to help create those values. It's like building ownership, a shared purpose.
That's it. And it's amazing what they did, turned a company people complained about into one they actually fought to keep running.
That's the power of customer culture, for sure. Both Australia Post and Virgin Trains really focusing on getting employees involved, making them part of the change.
Yeah. It's not just top-down orders. Let's look at a bank, Westpac in Australia. They wanted to be the top bank by 2017. Knew they had to improve their customer culture to do it.
Ambitious. Banks aren't always known for amazing customer service.
It was a big challenge. This guy, Jason Yetton, he led their retail banking. He knew it had to be a real change, not just surface stuff.
So more than just marketing or a new slogan, they had to actually change how they operated.
Exactly. Yetton focused on getting his leaders aligned around this customer vision and then giving employees the power to actually make it happen.
Did they, create new values with everyone, like those other companies?
They didn't do a whole new set, but they added this new value, courage. They wanted employees to challenge how things were done, find better ways to serve customers.
So they were encouraged to push for change, even if it was tough. Did it work? Did they reach their goal?
They had a lot of progress, but by 2013, they were still working on it. It's hard to keep things consistent when you've got branches all over the place.
Shows that even with the right ideas, changing a culture that big takes time. It's a marathon.
Absolutely. You're always improving, always adapting. Let's switch gears. Talk about a company known for its customer focus, Starbucks. It's more than just coffee, right? It's the whole experience, the connection.
Yeah, they built an empire on that. But the book mentions they actually strayed from that path for a while.
They did. When Howard Schultz, the CEO, stepped down in 2000, they kind of lost that laser focus on the customer. Not a huge shift, more like those core values got a little blurry.
It's easy to forget what got you there, especially when you're growing so fast.
Exactly. But Schultz came back as CEO in 2008, and he was determined to bring that customer focus back.
How did he do it? Turn things around?
First, he reminded everyone why Starbucks existed. Connect with customers, create community, amazing coffee. It was about going back to their roots.
I bet that felt good, like getting back to basics.
Yeah, and he didn't just talk. He closed every single store in the U.S. to retrain baristas, making that statement, quality and the customer come first.
That's serious commitment,
Yeah.
disrupting the whole business to reinforce those values.
And he did new things, too. The Starbucks Reserve line, those fancy small batch coffees, even more focus on experience. He also knew happy employees were key.
Right, back to those core ideas. A clear vision, everyone on board, and empowered employees.
That's it. He made sure everyone was aligned, inspired, and able to deliver that amazing customer experience. Starbucks shows even the most successful companies have to be careful about their culture.
It's not a one-time thing. You got to keep at it. What happens after a company shifts to this customer-centric approach? How do you make it stick? How do you avoid going back to the old ways?
Great question. That's what we'll cover in the final part of our deep dive. How to build a customer culture that lasts, even when things change.
We've seen some incredible stories of companies changing, becoming truly customer-centric. But how do you make it last? How do you stop things from slipping back, especially with new problems always popping up?
It's about creating a legacy. You got to embed those values so deep they become like part of the company's DNA. So even when leadership changes or the market goes crazy, those values still guide everything.
The book had some great examples of leaders who did just that. They made a real impact that lasted.
Yeah, Tony Collins at Virgin Trains. Remember, he took a company that was basically known for being bad to customers and made it one of the best.
Yeah, people actually fought to keep them running. That's a powerful legacy. How did he do it?
It wasn't just about making a few changes or slogans. Collins, he created a culture where employees felt like they could actually do something. Make those customer-focused choices, even if it went against the old way of doing things. Built trust, a real sense of purpose.
Speaking of trust and giving people power, the book talked about Lance Ugla, CEO of Market, a financial company. He had a really interesting way of building that customer-centric legacy.
Ugla, he got it. He knew employees needed to have a real stake in the company, so he gave them ownership, actual shares. When you feel like an owner, you care more about everything, including those customers.
Brilliant. Everyone's working towards the same goal.
And it wasn't just about the money. Ugla was big on transparency, collaboration. He wanted everyone to think like an owner, contribute to that mission of putting customers first, created a real sense of value, like everyone can make a difference.
So Collins and Ugla, they both understood it's not just about orders from the top. It's about creating a culture where everyone's thinking about the customer every single day.
Exactly. It's the how, not just the what. And that brings us to something else important for a sustainable customer culture, what they call peripheral vision.
Peripheral vision, like seeing what's happening outside of what you're focused on.
You got it. It's about paying attention to the bigger things, like changes in the market, new technology, even how society is changing, stuff that could affect your customers, your business down the road, being proactive, anticipating what's coming.
Like that analogy they use, tectonic shifts, those huge events that change the earth. Companies need to be ready for those shifts in their world, or they'll get left behind.
Yeah, it's like that. And a good customer culture, it's not stuck in time. It's got to be flexible, change with the world.
So it's not enough to just be good NOW.
Yeah.
You have to be ready for what customers will want next year, 5 years from now.
The book talks about digital technology, how it changed everything. Books, music, shopping. Companies that didn't adapt, they struggled. The ones with peripheral vision, they saw it coming and changed their plans.
So can you teach people to think ahead like that?
It's not easy, but it can be done. Start with building a culture of being curious, always learning. Get everyone at every level to keep up with what's happening in their industry, new tech, the world in general. Make it part of their job to look beyond what they do day to day and think bigger.
So it's like a change in how you think, not just looking inward, but outward too.
Exactly. And this starts at the top. Leaders have to do it themselves, looking for that outside information and getting their teams to do the same.
It's like those examples, Zappos in the call center, Virgin Trains, making those values together, really getting people to look outward, beyond their own little bubble.
Yeah. When everyone feels like they can contribute to understanding the customer, understanding the world, that's when things get really interesting.
So to wrap this all up, building a customer culture that lasts. It's a big job, but it's all about commitment, being able to adapt, and having that long-term vision.
You nailed it. It's about making the company truly customer-focused. And it's DNA. That's how they make decisions, how they act, and ultimately how they succeed.
This deep dive has been awesome, and I can't recommend the customer culture imperative enough.
And as you're reading, think about how you can bring this into your own work. We all have customers, even if they're just our coworkers. How can you be better at understanding what they need, giving them real value, and building those relationships that make everyone successful?
That's a great thought to leave everyone with. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Absolutely. Keep learning, keep digging into these ideas, and keep that customer focus front and center in everything you do.